Hello, everyone. Welcome to our December webinar with Amber Frey from Read Freely, Alabama. Here at the Alabama Campaign for Adolescent Sexual Health, we envision access to comprehensive sexual health for adolescents throughout Alabama and advance our mission to champion healthy adolescent development throughout medically accurate and equitable sexual health education and services. So, Amber, you can go ahead and introduce yourself and get started since we're going to talk about book banning and how that impacts communities.
Excellent. My name's Amber Frey. I am the executive organizing administrator with Read Freely, Alabama. We have quite a few comprehensive, inclusive sex education books that are included in the list of books being either actively removed or challenged in our libraries.
Feel free to start your presentation if you have slides or
Oh,
such, or I can
sure.
use slides.
So right now we are dealing with a lot of discrimination and discriminatory policies and policy changes within our libraries. A lot of the challenges are based on LGBTQ plus content, um, consent, and comprehensive sex education. Some of the books are based on books that are about that involve things like sexual assault or things that people go through, and these books are necessary in order to have people feel seen in their experiences, in their life, in their family dynamics, in the way they receive information about their own sexual health. So, a good example would be a book called It's Perfectly Normal. There are a lot of illustrations and a lot of information in there that might be alarming to some people. However, your kids are thinking about these things. Your kids are thinking about how they experience things and what is available for them to experience these things. In a book, It's Perfectly Normal, goes into age-appropriate ways on how to safely do these things without harming yourself, without using harmful content on the internet. A lot of things in this book are good to go through, like the questions that they might ask your parents, if they're comfortable asking. So, like if they want to know about, for example, like they heard about what, a certain sex toy is and they want to ask a question about it, there is information in that book on how to easily explain what that is and why it is, in a age appropriate and comprehensive way without making it weird or very adult. Another book called Another book that they are challenging quite a bit is, oh man, I'm losing track of the title of this book. First Conversation on Consent is a book for small children, and it teaches them that their bodies are their own. And it teaches them in a way where it says you don't have to give high fives, you don't have to accept tickling, you don't have to give hugs to people. This is your body, and you choose what you do with that body. It doesn't necessarily go into a lot of detail about like the sexual parts and the parts that, people are, like, excuse me, like where they're not supposed to be touched and whatnot. It does have that information in there, but it is a blip of that, so that it's known, but it's also teaching whole body consent. And we're not really sure where that book falls into why it's inappropriate. I'm very unclear and very concerned with the books that they're choosing for this. Like, why I'm not sure why they want these kids to be uninformed about consent to their own bodies. I'm not sure if they misunderstand what consent means or if they just don't want them to know. It's very unclear to me. Some of the books are going to be geared towards younger kids. Some of them are going to be geared towards older kids. The importance of these books and the importance of inclusion of these books is that these kids are going to, I mean, they're either going to find it in a resource, an educational resource, or they're going to find it on the internet. And quite frankly, as uncomfortable as sometimes these questions and this information makes me to speak to my children about, I would rather tell them from an educational book than have them search the internet for these things. And I don't have I don't have the answers to that. I don't have the answers for them because they've already thought that they found it themselves or their friends have told them about it or wherever they decide to get this information. It's very, very scary and very, very there's a lot of misinformation out there that can be harmful for kids to see and learn about. Um, so part of these books also includes how to safely be in LGBTQ plus relationships or talks about being transgender and how gender is, what gender might mean to somebody who's, not cisgender heterosexual. And it's important to these kids because there are kids out there who are transgender. There are kids out there who are LGBTQ plus. And if there's nothing for them to see, nothing for them to read about in the library that represents them and who they are as people, then they feel othered and they feel like what something's weird about them and what they're doing is wrong. Um, and that's just really sad because they are who they are. And no amount of ridicule or fighting with them is going to change that. They're still going to be who they are. So having books that look like them and make them feel like, an accepted part of society. Everybody wants to feel accepted. Um, so having them feel that kind of acceptance and normalcy and being seen in a book in a library, just like everybody else, is incredibly important. So they're trying to take books like that and call them inappropriate. They're calling them pornographic. Um, a lot of their pornography stuff is based on cartoon depictions of genitals, which in the conversation about consent is just that is a part of your body that is for you all by yourself. So it teaches the proper name of that body part. It teaches that that is not a part of the body for anyone else. And I mean, that's kind of important for them to know where that spot is. So it's not pornographic. And it concerns me also that people might find that people calling it pornographic, like, I can't imagine that anybody actually sees that and finds it titillating or arousing. That's not what it's for. So I'm unsure of how that might be pornographic. I can see how it might be alarming if you don't know that it's happening, like if you don't know what's going to be on that page. But if you're looking at a book that is teaching about consent or sexual education, I, I might expect to see something like that. And I might actually, hope that it would be in there because without that, it's, almost like they're not teaching the entire spectrum of consent or body health. Outside of the sexual health books, the sexual education books, there are many books that are being challenged that they're calling, they're picking certain parts of the book in young adult fiction, young adult, um, even young adult nonfiction and whatnot. They're taking bits of these books and taking the most, I guess, what they would consider the most inappropriate, the most alarming parts of these books. And it would be like maybe a page of the book or a paragraph of the book. And they're using that piece and reading it out loud with no context, no storyline, just that part of the book. That's what they'll read out loud, and that's what they'll present as why this book should not be in the library at all or in the adult section where the readers who it's meant for can't read it. This is just what's happening is that they're not necessarily trusting the library professionals. The library professionals who are trained in this cataloging, they're trained in the knowledge of what is right and wrong for children. They're trained in the knowledge of finding the right books because these books aren't right for all children. Um, so they know how to differentiate. They know how to listen to the parents. They know how to listen to the kids, and they don't drive people towards these books with an agenda. The people that go in with these books in mind go in for these books. So it's not a conspiracy the way that like Clean Up Alabama or Moms for Liberty would have you think. And the library isn't a dangerous place. There's no pornography in there. There are adult books, and some of the challenge forms that have been presented have been legitimate, and these books have been moved to the adult section. Not many of them, because there are not very many mistakes being made in cataloging, but it does happen. It's not a perfect, it's not necessarily a perfect system. No human system is perfect. There will be flaws. Um, for example, Sarah J. Maas, her books, when she wrote them with adults in mind. Um, her adults are listed by her publisher as young adult fiction. She would prefer they be adult fiction. She would have categorized them as adult fiction. And when those challenges came through in at least one of the libraries in Alabama, they did get them moved to the adult section, which is where uh, I believe appropriately they should be. But it's not even up to me. I don't know how to do cataloging. I'm not a librarian. I have not gone to school for this. So wherever these books are cataloged, that's where they should be. We should trust our librarians. And they all have the best interest of these kids in mind, all the kids, not just, and all the adults too, not just the cisgender kids, not just the queer kids, not just, the church going adults. It's everybody. And the point of Read Freely Alabama is that we want a book in the library to represent everybody, even the people we don't necessarily agree with. They deserve representation in the library. They deserve a book to read that represents their values. Even if those aren't my values, it's not my place to say that they can't have a book in the library about that. So we are working really, really hard to keep everything fair and inclusive, not just for the LGBTQ plus community, but for everybody. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Definitely, definitely feel free to come off mute if you have a question or type it in the comment box as well. Whatever you prefer.
Hello. Um, Thank you, Amber. Do people in general, these individuals or groups who are so concerned about banning these books, do they not see that we're repeating history with banning of certain books or groups or things like that? So if we go back to World War II, and we know what took place in Germany when they were banning and actually burning books, right? Do we not see we're kind of repeating, and when I say we, I'm saying the society collective, um, seeing that we're following those same footsteps without asking the question, what are we afraid of? Because I like the fact that you mentioned for small children, and I raised a daughter and um, a little while ago, but my brother and his wife, they have two little people. And I love how my brother has his daughter, because she's 5, you know, if may I have a hug? Like he's daddy, but he's like, may I have a hug? And so even I have learned not to touch her and says, well, may auntie have a hug? And if she says no, then I says, okay. And I respect that because, when we were little, when I was little, your parents were like, oh, go hug such and such. And you really didn't want to, right? And so now here it is a lot of the consent and stuff. So, there is a lot of because when I started hearing about the book bans, I was like, oh my goodness, did our society not go through this before? Do we not see that? And if we're talking about being an inclusive society, we should have representations and stuff, but we all should have the consent and, teaching of body parts and, even to the little people, because they're curious. They're like, well, what is this? Well, why mine's look? I mean, I remember my daughter doing that, you know. Well, why doesn't mine look like, well, I'm an adult, you know? And so, but it is that curiosity. And if, as us as parents or, loved ones, adult loved ones, can allow our children to ask the questions without being afraid and stuff, then I mean, I guess we wouldn't have this. I mean, we're going to always have people that just, yeah. So I'm sorry, maybe that was a question as well as like a statement. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yes. And I got so caught in listening to what you were saying that I forgot the initial question. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm sorry because I realized I kind of rambled. Um, so what I'm saying is, first, do the people who are so against whatever the group, do they first not look at our history and say, oh, we've gone through many iterations of this? Because we, even in this country, we did it in the 60s and 70s. So we've already kind of gone through this reiteration. Do we not see we're repeating? That was the first question. The second thing is, what are we so afraid of? That, and I guess that was the second question.
Yes, those are both excellent questions. We have actually brought to their attention, this was a tactic that we have used in saying, we've done this before. This is something that we have seen more than once in the past. And I mean, without even comparing it to what happened in Germany, we are able to compare it to what happened during the civil rights era. And they are targeting books. Angie had asked a question here to speak on the books about race that have been targeted. They are targeting books about race, and they're books specifically about race. And they're some of the challenge forms will say, you know, it says the N word, it says racial slurs in the book. I don't know that that's necessarily something that they're concerned about. And I don't know that they don't see that this is a repeat of history. I sort of wonder if that might be the point sometimes for some people, not necessarily all the people. I think a lot of people have just been very, very misinformed. There's been a lot of disinformation spread around. But I do think that some of the, you know, top runners of these situations do realize that this is a repeat of history, and I believe that that's the point for them. They want everything to be white, cisgendered, heteronormative, and um, kind of what I'm seeing happening now is they want it to be their own specific religion. It can't just be any sector of Christianity. I'm seeing some infighting on our local city page about what kind of Christian you are. You know, you're getting called out if you're a Methodist, you're getting called out if you're Episcopalian. Um, and so that's going to start becoming another target is what form of Christianity can we remove next? And it's not going to stop. Um, just like it didn't in Germany, just like it didn't in the civil rights era. Um, the more they get, the more they'll fight to get. And that's why we have to fight back because, I mean, starting with the easiest target, the trans community, only moved them to gay rights, moved them very, very quickly, almost no time, to people of color. Um, I mean, it just didn't take any time to get there. We've got books like, um, boy, I had this all in my head. Yes, Toni Morrison, absolutely. Um, The Bluest Eye, we have The Hate You Give. Thank you, Angie. I appreciate it. And there is a specific book called The Southernization of America. And the challenge form for that book said something along the lines of they were challenging it because it challenges traditional Southern culture and paraphrasing here, white people. So these challenges are targeting a lot of different communities. And I think that people who are following these challenges and creating these challenges who aren't necessarily understanding what's happening and they're just kind of working on fear, I think that they're going to start to see and understand when things that they like or things that they feel are good and acceptable start to get challenged in the library as well. Do we have any more questions? I talked a lot without taking a breath there. So, is there anything I missed? Oh, the most excuse me, Jessica Hayes asked what has been the most shocking thing you've heard during this process. And honestly, whew, there's been so many. I think the most shocking thing for me is not necessarily what I've heard during this process, but what I've seen in the State Library Board. Um, the picks that have happened, people who are very closely aligned with Moms for Liberty, Eagle Forum, Clean Up Alabama, and other book challenging groups like that are now sitting on the library board. And that has been the most shocking and probably disturbing part of this for me, knowing that our state library board has, people who want to ban books in charge of what the library gets and what the library does. What do you mean, Jessica? State Library Board?
I was just trying to clarify, you're talking about members that are sitting. You're talking about people that are sitting on the state library board,
Yes, I'm sorry.
APLS. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, the people that are sitting, yeah. the people that are sitting on the state library board, the people who have been put in place to be in charge of our state library board are closely aligned with people who want to ban books and are actually people who are actively trying to get these books removed as well. In our last library board meeting, one of the library board members, Amy Minton, mentioned wanting to get rid of books about anything regarding transgender individuals because those books should be illegal and
Can
will
you
be
speak
illegal.
more, can you speak more to that particular member and maybe some of their history before they joined the board?
Yes. So Amy Minton has been there from the beginning challenging these books. She actually challenged, what was it, 30 books in her local library. She wrote all of those challenges. We actually have those challenge forums without her name on them, obviously, but it had come out publicly that she had challenged them. And so she's been very closely aligned with this from the beginning. We had on the library board a woman named Virginia Doyle. She was at one point chair of the Republican Party. She had the audacity to defend libraries and say that this isn't our place. We do not have the right to be challenging, well, we don't have the right to be removing books just because we don't like them. She was then removed by Kay Ivey, and then Kay Ivey replaced her with Amy Minton. And Amy Minton is not quiet about her um, the way she feels about the LGBTQ plus community. She is quieter about books about race. She's quieter about books about people of color. Um, it's hard to tell where she stands in that, but she isn't speaking up for those books. So that's kind of a telling story a little bit, in my opinion. There are other members, Debbie Windsor, who also is believed to be at least affiliated with Moms for Liberty, if not a member. John Wall, who has said at the Republican National Convention, stated to Walter Masterson on a TikTok that he is for Project 2025. He will deny that now, but it's on video on Walter Masterson's TikTok. So we're working against some pretty high up people who are against inclusion and against representation, and it makes it more difficult, but we did win last year. We did get that legislation stomped out last year. We helped. Um, so it isn't impossible, and we do have to keep fighting. And it's important to talk about these people in, you know, kind of a way where we're not dehumanizing them, but we're also holding them accountable, because what they do is they dehumanize us. They dehumanize anybody who doesn't agree with them. And we have a lot of people who really, really, really want the library to remain apolitical and neutral on both sides of the political spectrum, everywhere. We've got libertarians, we've got Republicans, we've got Democrats, we've got Green Party, everybody. This is a very bipartisan issue, and Read Freely is a nonpartisan organization. We are very, very apolitical. We do not let our personal beliefs dictate how we run things, how we work towards a solution of fairness and inclusion. And while we do spend a lot of time talking about the LGBTQ plus community and people of color, that's because those are the books being targeted the most right now. We will, when they start targeting religions, different forms of Christianity, we will talk about that as well. That all of it's important to us. And I just wanted to make that clear because sometimes in the way we talk about things, it can sound very one-sided politically, and it just isn't. People's rights and personhood, and it shouldn't be a political issue. I understand that it is, but it shouldn't be, and we don't want the library to be a place where it is. The library should be a safe space for everyone who goes in there. Um, Melanie, her first name is Debbie. Oh, you answered that, Jessica. Thank you. Jessica is one of the founding members of Read Freely Alabama, and she is an academic librarian as well. She's always got my back. She's here to help me.
Yes, to answer the question, there will be a recording available. It will be on our YouTube channel, probably by the end of the week. If not, definitely, I'll try to do it tomorrow, definitely by the end of the week, though. So you'll have a link to watch it again and share with people, hopefully tomorrow. Since I have emails from people who sign up, I will send you the link, email the link to the YouTube, um, probably tomorrow. But our YouTube channel is Alabama Campaign for Adolescent Sexual Health. If you want to like subscribe and like just know when it comes out before I email it in case something happens and I forget. But you can look at it there. But we still have time for more questions. I also posted the link to a survey and that helps ACASH prepare and get ready for more webinars and what you want to hear about. I will email the link to from the YouTube channel, but I might actually put the YouTube channel on the I will I'll link the YouTube channel in a moment. But we have time for more questions. I think there's some more in here. Um or feel free to ask yourself or come off mute and ask, or we can just read through the comments ourselves. But I will put the link to the YouTube channel if you would like it.
Alex asked what laws say LGBTQ plus books are not allowed and what do we do to change this? Right now, it's not necessarily a law, it is a policy from the Alabama State Library Board. They will be making a law. They're pushing through a law called HB4. We call it the Jail the Librarians Bill because it does and could criminalize librarians for books that get challenged in the library that they think go against their policy. So any LGBTQ plus books, any books on their words, transgenderism, which that word icks me. It's not an ism. It's just transgender. They are transgender people. And so they're fighting to get all of this pushed through as law, as legal, as their constitutional rights. It hasn't happened yet, but their policy changes have threatened the funding of a lot of public libraries if they don't comply. All right, YouTube link, HB4. All right, Angie, can you talk about HB4 and the troubling language, gender-oriented conduct or presentation and exaggerated clothing, how that might endanger gender non-conforming staff? So that is another very, very interesting part of this is that they are trying to dictate what a woman is, not necessarily what a man is, but what a woman is. This is very, very female specific, as is most of the transgender issue. They are trying to make sure that we are presenting as the gender that they feel that we are. So if I wanted to wear an oversized button down and baggy jeans and have my hair short, that would be considered inappropriate for public spaces. More so if my son, who is not transgender, but he does enjoy wearing a really cute pair of wedge heels that he found in my closet. And if he were to wear those, he likes to wear them outside. I mean, they're his shoes as long as it doesn't break his ankles, you know? But if he were to wear those to a public space, it would be a problem. It could, they could tell him he has to change or he's breaking the law. Um, and this is dangerous, especially for staff in the libraries who are gender nonconforming, who dress in a way, maybe they are female, but they dress in a way that makes them feel comfortable that might be male presenting, in somebody's opinion. Um, or, I mean, there are men who are use pronouns he, him, and still like to wear long skirts. Um, they won't be allowed to do that. This is going to cause problems on a legal level for people in the library staff. And it's it's not going to stop there either. It will be a public issue. It's going to be really, really, really hard, though, for the library staff. Because, I mean, a lot of the library staff is either, most of them are very open and kind and non-judgmental, and some of them are queer, some of them are transgender, some of them are non-binary, and whatever they decide, whatever they decide to wear shouldn't be a representation necessarily of an opposite gender. Clothing is clothing, but this law would make it a problem for them. Oh, and yes, Angie, thank you. Inappropriate for minors is very vague. So it's not even pornographic. It's inappropriate for minors. It's very vague language in that bill. And that will, I mean, they can decide what that is on a whim. If they don't change the language of that, if they keep it at that vague language, they can decide whatever it is that they feel is inappropriate is breaking that law. Sorry, I'm reading so I can make sure I answer all these questions. Should we consider college level books based off explanations on how LGBTQ plus identities work and about affirming religion? I think that's an excellent idea. I'm not sure that everybody will be able to read a college level book and understand the content of it. However, that would be the best kind of book to get information from because they're going to have a lot of study-based and peer-reviewed information in those books that will be very helpful in understanding LGBTQ plus identities and religion and, affirming religion, especially like queer people are also Christians. They love God just as much as everybody else. So yeah, a college level book on the explanations is an excellent idea. They do have some easy reader books about that too, or some, just general adult books, general informational books, and that kind of thing too. Chloe's my daughter. She asked, how are book bans progressing on dystopian novels that target government, such as Fahrenheit 451 and 1984? These are books that I had on my school curriculum, and now I'm hearing they're being taken away. Can you talk about their opposition to this? So these books are not currently being targeted. They have been, and they are being targeted around the country. Alabama has not officially currently started targeting these specific books. And I think that that's because there's such a spotlight on these two books that have been challenged for years and years based on their content and how uncomfortable it makes people in sitting with that. Alex says, how do we make them kid friendly? Is Josh Coleman's Finding My Rainbow, the libraries in the libraries as we speak? I believe I'm not entirely sure of the library collections as a whole. There are hundreds of libraries across the state. Finding My Rainbow doesn't seem, I mean, I've read it. It's not inappropriate in my opinion. Um, um, I'm not sure what 1946 is.
It's actually a documentary. It's a really well
Oh,
done
yeah.
documentary about the first time the word homosexual appears in the Bible. And
Yes.
it's not until 1946 that it happened.
Yes, I forgot
And it's
about
due
that
to
because it,
translation error is what it is due
yes,
towards. And by
yes.
reverse translating the NRSV, they did find that this was a mistake and like some kind of way in the authorship the person said no, leave it with the mistake. So this documentary is trying to repair the damage that has been done by having having because that word never was translated that they're talking about in Greek was never translated as homosexual until
Yeah.
1946.
Yes, I remember that. I actually
I'm a
had that
theology
in
nerd,
one
that's
of
why
my
I was
queues on one of my streaming services.
I'm a
Um,
theology nerd, that's why I
it
was
might
like
be
I
on
can answer that
YouTube. I have to
question.
rent it. But yes, thank you so much because I had forgotten all about 1946, the documentary. And that is a really that would be I haven't watched it yet, but I heard it's a great watch and it's very informative. Yes, Alex, we definitely always can uh encourage writing letters to your local officials, to your state officials, to the governor, with any concerns you have. Books that are unaffirming and harmful to the LGBTQ plus community. Again, I don't know the entire library collection. There likely are because a lot of text, like books from people like Charlie Kirk or um, Ron DeSantis, that kind of thing, I would imagine involve unaffirming and harmful content for the queer community. So yeah, nobody's asking to remove those books. We don't want those books removed either. They are um, for a certain audience. I'm not going to read it, but somebody will, and we want them to have that right. Yes, Alex, we do write to our local officials. A lot of times we will help people and create campaigns because there is, and I can speak to this on a personal level. I have anxiety. I'm not sure if you can tell from how I speak. I have very severe anxiety in speaking with people. So it is, we try and help people with if they want a script, if they want bullet points. They can use what we offer, or they can, you know, check out what the actual issue is. We have it mapped out for them. And then also, you can read that and then make your own letter that way. But we do have several ways where we do help out with campaigning to right, our local officials and our state officials, and especially the governor. Definitely. Excuse me. Um, so I'm not sure, Alex, how KIV would feel about including LGBTQ plus religious people. That's really hard to tell. I think that a lot of the consensus from these challengers is that LGBTQ plus people are sinning without retribution, and I'm not sure how KIV feels about that. Um, she seems to side with that group of people. I'm not entirely sure if it's because of, politics or her own personal views. It's hard to tell. Barbara says the banning of books also seems to be a strategy to keep U.S. citizens uninformed, uneducated, and unaware of each other and what's truly going on with society. And yes, that is exactly the point. That's why they're also attacking public education and trying to remove the Department of Education. It's if people are educated, people fight back. People want more information. Educated people, people who know things about other people, are dangerous to these kinds of movements that they're trying to present here. That is absolutely their goal. I'm sorry, Alex. Um, it looks like I didn't fully answer your question, and you said like their lives. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm so sorry. Okay, it looks like Lacey answered that question for me. Thank you, Lacey. Lacey is also a librarian. Yes, states' rights, absolutely. That's a big thing for them. Has anyone statewide had any sit-in protests or out in or outside of the library or at the Capitol to draw attention to what's happening, other than the protest against Moms for Liberty event? Um, we don't necessarily hold protests. We usually, our form of protest is demanding to be seen by legislators, demanding to be heard by the library board, the state library board. We have seen people do some sit-ins and some protests outside of that. That is something that we would consider at some point. Right now, that's beyond our scope of ability because we have to be inside the legislation and inside the room where they're speaking, in the room where they're trying to make the laws. And we have to be in there speaking out against it and giving our reasons why. So it is difficult to do both things at once. We do, I'm sure there are a couple of protest groups that do that though. And yeah, I mean, other than the protest at the Mounts for Liberty event, I haven't seen I've seen a lot of them for the LGBTQ plus community and the anti-trans laws. Um, I haven't necessarily seen any sit-ins specifically for the library.
My question is just basically because how do we get more people to pay attention to this?
Yes,
Because
that is
that's what I'm struggling with. So thinking about having a constructive way of doing something like that because that seems to be what gets the media coverage. Like I just saw on 1819, they had, I don't know if you guys have seen it yet. I'm assuming you have, but December 4th, they had Moms for Liberty met with angry mob at Fairhope Library Board meeting. So those kind of, I mean, granted, it was 1819,
Yeah.
but those kind of catchy headlines is what brings people in to read an article. And then they're like, oh, but the other side is just saying that everybody, the library is for everybody. Well, that sounds, you know what I mean? Like there needs to be more attention to it, in my opinion. But I mean, I
So
know you guys.
yeah,
Go ahead.
1819 News
Oh,
will
I know. I
write
know.
their catchy headlines.
No, I
The
know.
Angry Mob in Fairhope was definitely just people speaking for their library. But I mean that's true. That is very true. We do have a lot of press who will write on our behalf as well.
Okay.
1819 News sometimes does that. Not necessarily in a positive light, but one of their headlines was we are fueled by love and rage.
Yeah.
And they tried to turn that into a negative. And, Amber Frey said this, and, where's the bad?
Hmm.
So it kind of, I mean, they work in our favor when they're trying not to sometimes. But it is complicated to do protests and sit-ins because we also need the legislators to listen to us. So we do need, we do encourage everyone to do what they feel would be best for themselves and how they would feel most helpful in those situations. We need the legislators to hear us inside. We need them to hear what we're saying and then um, a lot of times if we join a protest, it is
I didn't mean you guys holding one.
oh yeah, no.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, no, I just it
I
it gets into the partisan the partisan appearance that we're trying to um let
I will
everyone
say
know that we're
this,
not.
that sorry.
Go
Um,
ahead.
uh, when it comes to protests, especially, you want to be careful about organizing them and making sure that they align with what the library might need. I will say that at
okay.
the Capitol, it adds just to the noise of everything when it comes to this
Okay.
particular issue at the Capitol level. It,
Okay.
it adds the noise and it just becomes just blind. Like they become, like they don't see it. At a library, the best way to raise awareness is not through media attention, it is through these kind of sitting down and talking through these in these sessions, is going to these things. Unfortunately, that is just the way that it's, and that's how Moms for Liberty operates. If you notice, their 1819 news coverage that doesn't get a lot of engagement on the social medias,
No, it
on
doesn't.
the social medias, on social media. What Where they grow and where they raise awareness is in things like this. It isn't through word of mouth, and it is by going to churches and going to their church groups and going to their community groups and spreading their information. So it is a catch 22. Sorry, Amber.
No,
Gonna
no,
hop.
thank you. I was having a difficulty trying to diplomatically explain why we don't protest. Because
I
at
should have
certain points I have protested.
well, I should have clarified. I didn't mean you guys. I just when you see they're coming after marginalized groups.
Mhm.
And then I've had conversations with people that just don't know what's going on in the library. I just
Yes.
was wondering if in like other, I don't know like what's happening. I only know what's happening up here in North Alabama. So I was just curious if any other groups have tried to do anything like that. I wasn't meaning you guys. Sorry.
Not that I'm aware of. Jessica, do you know of any?
No, not except for the Moms for Liberty event. up there. I know that there's some groups up there challenged it. And, whoever wants to take that project on, more power to them. I would always, of course, work with the local librarians, and make sure that um, the attention that the protest might bring would be beneficial to them. Because that's the other thing that's in play. Sometimes these libraries and librarians are trying to avoid too much attention and too much. So we're walking like a fine line here. It's a very tricky thing to navigate this particular issue because each library is so uniquely different, even if they're in the same town or if they're in the same like county area.
Right. I am reading. Angie's helping me in the comments. Thank you, Angie. Does anybody else want to ask a question?
There may be like one more question. Time for like one more question, if anybody has one.
So I'm curious. So my parents are Alabamians. They had us kids in Illinois. They went back to Alabama. So they also are a bit religious. However, they understood the importance of reading books, right? Or the library, right? Libraries, like the church, is always been the backbone of communities. So perhaps there's a way, and I'm not going to use the word spin, but to promote that the libraries have always been the backbone of our communities. It is that type of social services. So we know that in various states, the library actually was passing out free food during the pandemic when the schools were shut down, right? So I think if there's a way to, and especially it seems like a lot of the southern states or various states are being, the librarians are being attacked, or, the books are being attacked or banned and stuff like that, to kind of highlight, why do we have libraries? The importance of the libraries. And because if it is a safe haven, people can get information. We want to make sure the information is there for everyone. So maybe there's a way to highlight that, because I live here in New York State now, um, and I'll be in Alabama in a couple of days. And so that's kind of what I do, even with my parents, because, all of us children are grown, but they're smaller grandchildren now. And so it's like, how do we get those who might have fought or marched in the civil rights and stuff to still be um, somewhat active when stuff like this, and maybe highlighting, something. I'm going to talk to my parents and perhaps their church, in which highlighting the libraries. We need those libraries.
Mhm.
So a
Yeah.
suggestion.
Yes, definitely. That's absolutely. And that's something that we are working on in highlighting the other services that the libraries offer for low-income families. And I mean, they offer American Girl dolls sometimes. They offer science equipment, laptop rentals, notaries, just all kinds of things that, Wi-Fi connections, all kinds of things that are necessary for people in low income families to use, or people in rural areas who might not have access to the internet. So that is definitely something that we're working toward and trying to help people understand. And it's an excellent idea in trying to get people to really think about the library as an institution that is the backbone of society and education, rather than a place where people go to get indoctrinated. Oh, wait. Okay. Well, thank you all for having me. I hope I spoke clearly. This is one of my first times doing this. So I appreciate you all having me on today and listening to me and asking some amazing questions and interest in getting involved. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Taryn.
Thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here and listening to discussion about book banning. There will be I will email you all a link to the recording of this, and it will also have a link to the survey that help give you a few minutes, maybe it'll take you less than 5 minutes to fill out the survey. Just to help Akash kind of get a footing of what we want to do next year and like what are you gonna do with this information that you've learned. In January, our executive director Christina will be talking about preparing for the legislative session in Alabama. In January it's the same the second Tuesday, so it'll be the second Tuesday of January. So if you have more questions about like Alabama's legislative session in particular, she will be able to answer those next month. So that will be, if I see a lot of you have like questions about like bills and stuff, I'm pretty certain she can answer a lot of those questions as well. Um, that would be great. We'll send out our reminder emails. If you would like to email, you can, I would be added, what am I trying to say? I don't know. You can check out our website, if you've never heard of our organization, check out our website, alabamacampaign.org. We can learn about what the work that ACASH does and how we help promote um, better sexual health for ages 14 to 24 in Alabama. I don't think I have anything else to say at the moment. We have lots of like things coming up, programming. So feel free to check out us, check out Read Free Alabama, and have a great day and have a happy holidays. And we will see you all in 2025.
Just real quick, if you want
Yes,
to learn
good.
more about Read Freely Alabama, you can find our website at readfreelyalabama.org. And all of our information about what we're doing, our campaigns, and everything will be right there. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you all. Have a fantastic day.
You too. Thank you.